So today we're going to be starting a new series for this channel, and this is going to be the winner from last week's poll, and this is of course, what if the Canadian provinces became independent countries? I also did a series on what if the US states were independent countries, and that did quite well, and so now we're going to be moving north to the Canadian provinces. Before we get started, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. All the support is greatly appreciated as we try to reach our goal of 5,000 subscribers by the end of this year. So yeah, let's get started. So of the Canadian provinces, most of them don't have great economies. I mean, provinces like Alberta and Ontario would be perfectly fine as countries. British Columbia and Quebec would probably be fine as well, maybe even Manitoba. And maybe even some of the maritime provinces, especially if they united together. But the territories have almost no economy as, well, they're territories and they're mostly governed by the federal government of Canada. Saskatchewan wouldn't be the greatest, and to start things off, they're actually going to go ahead and unite with Alberta. These two provinces are very close together, and so it only makes sense. Next, we're going to move to the East Coast, where Nova Scotia and PEI are actually going to unite. New Brunswick might join this union in the future, but for now they're going to remain independent, as they also have close ties to Quebec due to their French similarities. As I've said, none of the territories have, as I said, really good economies, and so they're not going to do too well. British Columbia is decent, and we're actually going to have the Yukon unite with them. Most of Yukon's major roadways connect through British Columbia, and so it'd just be easier for transport and stuff like that. And BC also wanted access to the Arctic Ocean, as well, a lot of people know about the importance of this region for trading as the ice caps melt. So now we have a Western Canadian Union, probably just called British Columbia. But now we actually have our first war happening. And it's actually Ontario declared war on Manitoba. Ontario wants to expand, and what better way to do this than attacking their weakest neighbor? Now we actually have the Alberta-Saskatchewan Union joining as a third party in this war, as you want to look to get access to this, as you want to be able to export their oil resources and stuff like that. Alberta also doesn't really like Ontario that much, so it's a bit of a rivalry there. But they're going to begin to move into northern Manitoba, which is pretty much just forest, just like most of northern Canada. And then Ontario is going to focus in on the southern areas and up north along the Hudson's Bay. After a couple of weeks, Ontario takes over Winnipeg, and Alberta and Saskatchewan take out a lot more of northern Manitoba, and they even begin to push into the southern plains. They spearhead over and they take over the northern areas of Lake Winnipeg, and they continue to push out towards the Hudson's Bay. Eventually they do reach the bay, and this entire northern part falls to Alberta. They take over a little bit more of the coast, but eventually the rest falls over to Ontario. And all three countries are going to meet up for a peace deal, and that peace deal looks something like this. Manitoba is divided between Alberta and Ontario, and Alberta now has access to the sea where they can export oil and other resources. We now have a bit of a rivalry being built up between Alberta and Ontario, as they want to look to expand their influence and their power in the region of, well, Canada. But the US is probably the major superpower here, because, I mean, super powerful country. I'm not really sure what this would mean for the world. I mean, Canada is not a global superpower like the US or Russia or China, but we'll probably see something like that in a later episode if this series continues. But for now, Alberta is going to actually continue to expand as they now declare war on the Northwest Territories. This is not at all a powerful country, as it's literally just tundra, but there is none of it who's going to come to their aid, and I'm not going to color in every single island. Okay, I lied, I colored in all the islands. But now we actually have BC joining this war, because they just want to look to expand their influence in the Arctic, and that's really it. So Alberta is going to focus in on the Hudson's Bay area because they want to establish their sea access, and they're also going to push up to this lake and take over Yellowknife, which is the capital of this country, and from there's like no more people left, so basically it surrenders, but it doesn't because I said so. And BC is going to move in from the Yukon in the north along the coast here. I'm going to push in along all their border, and it is really easy for these countries to push through, because, I mean, it's just basically flat open land. They're above the tree line now, for the most part. They can pretty easily just push up to the northern coast and take over a lot of land. They make landings on this island here, and with the Northwest Territories, well, gone, they're going to capitulate, and none of it's going to surrender, and now we're going to take a look at a peace treaty. And take a look at this peace treaty. Alberta has expanded a lot. They're almost unrecognizable from what they were at the start of this video, except for the Alberta-BC border here. But BC and the Yukon expanded a little bit into the Northwest Territories. Alberta expanded a lot, obviously, and they also took this little bit of this island here. And what was left of the Northwest Territories and these islands united with none of it. So none of it is really just a bunch of islands now. And now for one final event in this video, we have Quebec declaring war on Newfoundland and Labrador. Quebec just wants to take over Labrador, really, and just have full control over this northern area. Nova Scotia and PEI are obviously in support of Newfoundland, but they're not going to join this war because they would get destroyed by Quebec. But New Brunswick is actually going to support Quebec in this, which is kind of strange considering the region. You'll see in a later episode. And I don't think a lot of people actually know this, but Newfoundland and Labrador actually used to be their own country before they joined Canada. And so they could probably survive as their own country, but I don't know anything about their military, so I don't think they would. And they probably would definitely not be able to go up against Quebec, so they're kind of doomed here. But Quebec's just going to take over all of Labrador, really. Like, it's not even fair. So after probably about a month or so, they take over all of Labrador, and they're going to do up a peace treaty. And I bet none of you saw this coming, but Quebec annexed all of Labrador. And so that's going to be it for today's video. Let me know if you did enjoy this video, and if you want to see more of this series. Make sure to show some support on this channel by liking the video and subscribing. Make sure to leave any video suggestions below. I will likely do them. And leave any other comments or feedback you have. I will see them and probably reply to them. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.